Welcome to the Association's Futures Podcast, brought to you by Association Activision. We ask you to join us to discuss the future of the Association's community. How can we build and focus on the many futures we will see during these disruptive times? Let's get started with today's guest.
Welcome, friends, to another edition of Association Futures Podcast. This is a special two-part series celebrating the work of ASAE's Key Consultant Committee Task Force with our chair and host for this meeting, the Content Task Force Chair, Barbara Armitage.
Thank you. In addition to having a long name, I've got a long title there too. So I welcome everybody to it, and we're labeling this conversation Inside Association Consulting. This is all on help that consultants are offering to fellow consultants. And our theme this month is on client relationships and business models. And this is part of delivering the content that ASAE consultant members have told us in surveys that they want ASAE to provide so they can do their own businesses better. So as Michael mentioned, this is going to be a two-part. We're going to house the link for these in the ASAE Collaborate Consultant Community online library. Everything has way too many words, I'm sorry. But now I'm going to intro myself and ask each person to give their 45-second elevator pitch introducing yourself. So I am Barbara Armitage of BJA Solutions. I help associations with strategic planning to boost their non-dues revenue programs. I help nurture dynamic business collaborations, and I help associations explore smart technology solutions. Scott Oser, give us your pitch.
Hi, I'm Scott Oser with Scott Oser Associates. We are basically a marketing and sales firm. We work with associations, and currently we're really focused on expanding and growing our telemarketing services, as well as we do quite a bit of digital marketing. And then finally, we help associations with advertising, exhibits, and sponsorship sales.
Wow, that's a lot. Thank you. Lee Duffy, you're a longtime consultant in the UK.
Yeah.
Tell us who you are and why you're here.
I'm Lee Duffy from Triology. We work at an intersection of data and market research and strategic planning. So it tends to be where we're not getting involved in execution, where Scott and his team might be, but we're giving our teams the ammunition, our clients the ammunition to build a solid plan, understand how they can best build engagement, value, and conversion for their members or supporters, whatever it happens to be. And that often can consist of things like segmentations, customer value models, predictive models, but also softer insights around what should the communication journey look like, what motivations, expectations from members and supporters.
Great, thank you. Rick, time for your quick ride.
That leaves me. Thanks. Hi, good morning. Rick Whalen, Marketing General. I've been here 39 years and helping associations grow their most important assets. It's the customers and member base they serve. MGI is a full service agency. It's been around for 47 years. Works for about 50 different associations all across the country, offering a variety of strategic marketing, auditing, and planning services and then implementation on the projects that we propose.
Fabulous. Thank you. Michael Butera, thank you for hosting our podcast, and give us your 45 seconds about your other talents.
Well, thank you very much, Barbara. Michael Butera, Association Activision. I help associations see what's next, and that involves scenario and strategic planning. I do executive coaching, team development. Most importantly, I really work on the strategic capacities and infrastructure of organizations so they can accomplish their mission. Barbara, back to you.
Well, thank you. We've got a nice range of folks here. We're going to talk about client relationships. And one thing that I notice is our clients often come to us when they need help with membership recruiting or renewals. We ourselves have a very similar track to that, where we have client relationships and retention essential to keeping our businesses afloat. So let's share some insights that our colleagues who might struggle with this part of the consulting world can learn from. And Rick, I know you've got lots of client stories. Tell us about some of your best client relationships and what makes them work other than the deliverables.
Yeah, I think what makes them work most is the client trusting you and trusting what you say, which may not all the times be what they want to hear. And I'll give you a great example. So I just signed a client who originally came to us for us to do a 2026 marketing plan and audit of their membership program. And basically, as they talked about it, I discovered they didn't have a membership marketing program. So during the course of the call with their board, I dropped the bomb and said, you don't need a 2026 marketing plan and audit. You need somebody to start marketing your membership now. And at one point, I could hear my colleagues on the phone think, "Oh my God, what has he done?" But I heard at the same time the incoming board chair of the client saying, "Exactly, exactly. I can't believe you said that. I've been telling my board we don't need to plan, we need to do." And so I think sometimes it's trying to share with clients the, insanely obvious that helps me in my work because I don't, after all these years, clients come and go for all these firms. But I think the clients that stay and come back are because they know that what you're going to say is going to be right for them. You're not trying to sell them something necessarily. You're trying to help them accomplish something.
Mm-hmm. And Lee, I want to pull you in because your agency also, you deliver research and data along the client relationship line. I mean, do you have any anecdotes to share? But I also want to know how you help set boundaries around the scope of work, as well as how much access do you allow clients to your team in the course of gathering the data and research?
Yeah. So I think coming the first part of the question, I agree a lot with Rick, and I share those sort of experiences. I think if I think about the clients that I've worked with for the longest time, often where they've moved to new organizations and they will, pick up the phone and ask us to get involved. Often what they're really looking for is an independent voice to help frame their thinking, and someone that they know they can have a conversation with, and that person will understand what they're thinking. Perhaps it's not quite fully formed, perhaps it's lacking a little bit of evidence, perhaps it's not being pitched in the right way. But they want to have that reassurance, and what we're doing and what they're buying really is clarity. And so maybe have conversations with them. I'm thinking of a couple of individuals here where I'll spend time on, and perhaps the first time they talk me through their plan and what I think I don't understand it, and I challenge and question, and then I play it back to them and say, "Okay, so is this what you think?" And they go, "Oh, yeah, that's it, that's great." And now I can build a narrative around that. I can build basically a pitch, where I'm enabling them to sell internally their idea, and then we'll pick up some work off the back of that. So it's very collaborative. And I think when I started the agency, I probably was having those conversations, but not as much as I am now, because I think it just comes with experience and building those relationships. And so I think that comes back to the second point around putting apples with apples in terms of the relationships that the team have. So there are often questions where a more junior member of my team is much better placed to ask of the client, because the client's probably not thinking that's a stupid question, whereas I ask it, I think that's a stupid question. Or the client's, a more senior person in that client is more afraid to sort of say, which I don't know, where someone more junior, if there are sister relationships that happen at a more junior level, often my team will come back to me and say, "Oh, I spoke to so and so, and actually they told me what's going on, what the boss really thinks or whatever," and it's super powerful. And again, for a while I resisted that because I thought that I needed to have an all-seeing eye over everything, and I don't. And actually, it's counterproductive to do that sometimes.
And I think for most of us, we need an internal champion, no matter what we do. We don't want to just deliver some report that says, "Here's how to fix all your problems. Bye-bye." That's not the kind of work that any of us is doing. And Michael, I'm going to loop you in now, and it goes back to some of the points that Rick and Lee just made. I think I heard trust quite often. When you start a new client relationship, How do you ensure that they're seeing you as a partner and not a vendor? What do your 30 to 60 days look like so that you can get that relationship off to a strong start?
I think the most important part is to demonstrate that this is a collaboration. If, they're not just paying for you to tell them what to do. In fact, that's probably the wrong thing. What they really need is somebody to help them see the big picture. And I think that the most important part for me is to have great facilitation skills with that group. Learn who the people are that really make the decisions. Learn who the people are who haven't been heard inside the organization that have really good ideas, and
Mm,
then surface that up to the table. So in those first 30 to 60 days, what we really want to do is to explore what it is that the organization intends to do, wants to do, seeks to do, and then importantly, where we are and what the potential steps are to do that. And that involves really relationship building. The better you are at building relationships over the week to week to week engagements, the better the client will feel, and the job you will do will be much more appreciated by the client and future clients as well.
And have you ever, I've had situations where my client, I'm going to call them the gatekeeper, the person who was supposed to be my primary point of contact, was not the most helpful member of the team.
Well,
Yes.
yes, that's of course true. Uh, I would put one other word in here. Sometimes as a consultant, you have to be a little courageous.
Mm,
You have to be able to, as they say, tell truth to power, but do it in a way that doesn't demean or harm an individual, but brings the issue up on top of the table and an opportunity for us to really resolve the problem and to seek better, more important solutions to the issues that are presented.
mhm. Scott, you haven't peeped in on this at all.
No, I agree with a lot of what's being said. I mean, I think what we do, it's actually we do a lot of doing. So on the sales side of things, our job is to sell on behalf of the client, and so oftentimes we are given a list of um, items, if you want to call it that, that we are at their uh, we sell just because that's what they have to offer. And
Hmm.
so one of the things that's really tough or can be really tough is we have to walk into an engagement with the understanding that, or with the belief that they know what the audience wants. And so that's not always the case. And so doing that kind of work, the first 30 to 60 days is often doing and discovering all at the same time. So
Hmm.
we really have to make sure that we are sharing that knowledge that we're gaining and sharing the response information with the client so that we can potentially make changes and so that we can potentially adjust things so that we have a better chance of actually selling and reaching their revenue goals, because ultimately that's what they're hiring us for. They're hiring us to bring in that revenue. But sometimes, unfortunately, we're left with what they're offering. We get the list of deliverables, we get the list of offerings, and we have to sell it. So what's really, really crucial is being able to and being confident enough, as Michael was saying, having the confidence to say to our clients and the trust to say to our clients, look, we're doing this, we're doing what you hired us to do. So we ask you to trust us in doing that. But then we want to let you know that as we're going out there and actively communicating and selling this information or selling these opportunities to your prospects, this is the feedback we're getting. So we may want to consider changing this or changing that or altering this or altering that. And so it's unique because I know I've said this a couple of times already, but we are selling what they initially provide to
Hmm.
us. We don't typically get to create that. We are left with what they give to us to sell, and so that can be challenging.
Yeah.
Although I think, go
Oh, I'm
ahead.
sorry. I was going to say you're right on it. And probably the hardest thing, I mean, I think it was you said talking talking truth to power. The hardest thing to do is to say to a client, the thing that you're offering, nobody wants, or the
Yep.
thing you're offering is not as good as it could be. But I think it gets the comfort level as you've been in the business for a while. I don't think in my first, year at Marketing General, I would have said that. But now if I get something that I'm thinking, well, the reason you couldn't sell it it's not necessarily going to change immensely if I try and sell it, if it's not a good product, if it's
Right.
not explained right, if it doesn't help the buyer, and sometimes that's difficult because you're thinking, I don't want to lose this work, but this is
But I
not
can't
a
sell
good
right-handed
job
scissors to a
offer. That's right.
left-handed audience. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
Barbara, one of the things I've learned over time, it's kind of simple when you hear it said, but it's difficult to execute. And that is, you learn a little and you do a little. That's both
Mm.
true for the provider, the consultant, and for the vendor, your client. If they learn a little and do a little, they gain in that trust and understanding that's necessary to advance. If just telling people what to do just really doesn't work.
Well, I know one of my favorite questions early in a discovery call is to ask, about the value proposition of the association. And I'm no longer surprised how few can actually answer that. Because if I'm selling something for them, I need to build my own value prop. As you said, Scott, the things that they want me to sell that nobody wants to buy. But I need to know what is our foundation here, if there is one, and how many of us are writing value propositions for clients as a side effect of the work that they're actually hiring us to do, because they don't know that. But Scott, I also want to loop back to you because I've done similar work to yours in the past, and I know a lot of your deliverables are very measurable for the client, but they're not under your control. As you said, wrong price, wrong product, wrong timing. So a challenge can be knowing when a relationship might be at risk. Have you ever had that happen to you? What do you do to repair it, or what do you look for to say, nope, time to move on?
I wish I could say that I've never had that happen, but
We've all had it. We have
right.
all had it.
As Rick was saying, some clients come and go for lots of different reasons. Sometimes it can have absolutely nothing to do with you and the effort you've put in and whether you've fulfilled your commitment or not. It's just the board changes. I mean, we could do another podcast on the reasons why we lost clients and whether it had anything to do with us or not. But really, what I think is most important is being upfront and honest with your clients and tracking as closely as you can where things are going and letting them know where things are as early in the process as possible. I do, honestly, I tell my clients, I'm not in the job of reporting. That's not what I do. You guys don't pay me to report. You don't pay me to write a million reports about what is going on. So I try to do as little of that as possible. That said, it is a critical piece. They want to know where things are. They want to know what is selling. They want to know how many people you're reaching. They want to know those types of things in the work that we do. So what I would say, Barbara, I would twist your question a little bit and just say, what my job is to prepare them so that there are no surprises, right? I don't want them to come, we're working for 15 days, 30 days, 60 days, whatever it might be. And all of a sudden they look at their numbers and they go, wait a minute, we're not where we want to be. We're not where we need to be. So my job is really to make sure that we do our best not to have to repair. That said, there are clients that have certain expectations, and I try my best to get this out in the open during our initial discovery calls, back to what we were talking about, but it's not always possible because they can tell you this is what we've had in the past. They can tell you their perspective on why. But so it's really important to set up expectations up front and to try and get as much information out in the open up front as you can so that you know how much reporting you need to do, so that I mean, honestly, you know whether you even want to take the client in the first place. If somebody tells you, people come to me And all of us, I'm guessing, because they have a need and something is probably not working optimally. I don't want to say something is wrong. I don't want to say something is broken, but something is not working optimally. So they're reaching out to a consultant, an expert for help. So, I do my best to answer your question, Barbara, I do my best to avoid having to repair. But when it needs to be done, hopefully I will have developed a good relationship with the client, and I will have the data and the information that I need to say to them, this is what's been going on. This is the work that we've been doing. This is the results that we've been seeing. So here are some recommendations or some thoughts I have on ways that we can move forward and have more success. And then sometimes it just doesn't work. Sometimes they say, appreciate it. I would say that it's been very, very rare in the 20 some years that I've been in business when a client has said to me and can show to me, you have not been doing what is in the contract. You have not been doing what has been asked of you. It may not be what they perceive that they want us to do or what their perception is on what they want us to do. But I can tell you that it's very, very rare that has ever happened, because I have the data and I have the information, because me and my people, we're the ones doing the work. We're the ones doing the work. So I can show to them that this is what's been going on and this is the effort that we've been putting in place. And so I share that.
Well, thank you. And we're getting close to wrap up. But Lee, I want to ask, when you're doing research, how do you report, update, keep your client? How do you manage their expectations during that process?
Yeah. We share a lot of information, and one of the things that we make sure to do is to have regular scheduled catch-ups with the client, even if that's just 15 minutes, once or twice a week, just so the client can see that where they're often the client might say, we don't need that call. And we'll say, well, it'd be really great just to have you 5-10 minutes, just so they can see that we're on it and we've been thinking about this. We've been looking at what the response is like. We've been reacting to that to boost response where we need to, share emerging insights early on, get them excited about, the piece of work. Because I think often some of the stuff we get involved with, it might be something that another agency has been involved with before, or the client's done internally before, and they've probably been doing it in quite a vanilla fashion. So part of that, building value is showing them what good looks like, showing them what something that's really being done by someone and a team of people who've got experience in this area, what that looks like and what that means in terms of extra value you get out of it. And that helps then, client retention, obviously, as well, which is, very important, thinking about how you can retain clients, which people have said is an art. There are times when you just can't control that. But there are a lot of things you can do to try and mitigate that, or at least leave in a way where the client is happy to come back to you at some point in the future.
Yeah, as Lee said, we pretty much insist on a 10, 15, 20-minute weekly call, every 10 days call, because not only do you get to sort of take a temperature check of the client and talk about what's worked and what's not, but also to hear how their thinking is going. How is the relationship evolving? And if a client says, I don't need that, or, I trust you or something like that, and don't want to have those kind of conversations, I get real scared real fast.
And I had one client who would accept the calls, but was consistently 5 minutes late, no matter when I scheduled the meeting. Well, such is life. Okay, I want to ask each panelist to put your contact information in the chat, and we will save this in the show notes if folks want to chat with you longer. And then I also, while you're not typing in your name and contact, let's go round the robin. And what is one takeaway? What do you wish someone had told you when you first started your consulting business? What's the one thing you wish you had known? Mr. Butera.
What an interesting question. If there were one thing that I think I would have liked to have known, I would say it is never, never believe everything that you hear from your client.
Amen. Yes. Lee, how about your end?
Yeah, I guess I wish that I think a lot of problems you can run into, we've been talking about where relationships depending on client feels you haven't delivered what you agreed to deliver. That can often be about their own anxiety or their own internal organizational anxiety. And I wish that I'd known that early on. But yeah, absolutely, that's something I, in conversations very early on, get that out and say that what's really going on here? What's the sort of mindset of the organization? What are your priorities in terms of your ambitions, and making sure we respond to those and are aware of that as early as possible.
Great. Rick?
Yeah, I think knowing how risk adverse associations are, I always say, very few people get fired for doing nothing. They get fired for making abrupt changes or hiring the wrong consultant. So, I learned early on that you need to try and mitigate the risk. You can't eliminate the risk in any program that you're doing. As Scott said, he can do all the calls he wants or all the emails he wants. If the product's not any good, people are going to buy it. Nothing he can do about that. But at least he can report on what he's hearing and to try and mitigate the risk that he's facing.
Scott, hate to have you back clean up, but you're agreeing with all that, and what do you bring to it?
I agree with
What's
all
your-
that. And I think the one thing that I would wish I had known is that, and I guess I sort of did know this, but I just want to reiterate it, is that it's okay to ask hard questions as you're talking to your clients. You want to put yourself in a right position, in the best position to succeed. And if you're not asking them questions while they're just as much as they're asking you questions, that you put yourself at risk to finding something out later that would have really benefited you if you had known it when you were starting. So I would say to make sure that you're asking your client or your prospective client questions, and sometimes difficult questions, so that they're honest and open with you just as much as you're going to be honest and open with them.
Well, that is like the perfect softball to part 2 of this conversation, when we're going to talk about business models. And one of the questions that I plan to put to each of y'all is, when do you talk money? Because we are not in this out of the goodness of our hearts. We're the for-profit side of the nonprofit. So I want to thank each of you for this, our part 1 conversation, and thank everybody for joining us. Be sure to catch the next episode of Inside Association Consulting, where we will talk about traditional and new business models. Signing off for now. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.